This is the first in a series of videos where we're going to be reflecting on the first 3 chapters of Revelation, the last book of the New Testament. And they are accompanied by the study booklet, which is available in any of our churches across the benefice. The book of Revelation isn't always easy to read or to understand, but the first 3 chapters we read of Jesus giving a message to 7 churches in Asia. And it's quite important that we try to get to grips with what those messages are, because it may well help us to understand and to see what it is to be and to do church in today's world. A world which is constantly changing and rapidly changing, and we currently seem to be facing one crisis after another. So it's important for us as Christians and as a faith community to try and understand what we should be doing and how we should be being church. And these first 3 chapters of Revelation may help us to do that. In this first video, we're looking at Revelation chapter 1, verses 1 to 20. And in the opening chapter of Revelation, we read from John that he has a vision of the risen Christ, who says that he has a message for 7 churches in Asia. The description of Jesus in this passage is quite detailed, and so it's quite important that we read that, and it's important that we understand what this means. It's important that all churches and all Christians have an understanding of who Jesus is within the context of the world in which we live. The description we read in Revelation may be full of lots of different symbols, but it gives us important information about Jesus. He is described as the one who was, who is, and who is to come. That's a description of the eternal nature of Jesus. He is described as the firstborn of the dead, which references his resurrection at Easter. He is described as wearing a long robe with a golden sash. His hair is as white as snow, which is a reference to wisdom. His eyes are like a flame of fire, his feet like molten bronze, and his voice is like the sound of raging waterfalls. All these give an impression of power, and his tongue is like a 2-edged sword, which means the word of God cuts both ways. And so here we have a picture of Jesus who is eternal and powerful. But we read that this vision of Jesus takes place within a group of 7 golden lampstands. And we read at the end of this passage that these 7 lampstands represent the 7 churches to whom a message is being given. So the picture here is of Jesus walking freely among those churches. His eternal and his powerful presence is with those churches. But a lampstand is made specifically that a light may be put on top of it, and so it shines and illuminates everything around it. The lampstands are the churches. The light is the eternal light of Jesus Christ. So here we have a description of the relationship between Jesus and his churches. We also read of Jesus holding 7 stars in his hands. These stars are described at the end of the passage as the angels or messengers of the 7 churches. Now, it's difficult to understand fully what that means exactly, but it's likely that these messengers are the very spiritual existence of those churches. And so when Jesus gives a message to the angel of a church, he is addressing its spirituality. But there is something else to note here, is that Jesus is depicted as holding those stars in his hands. Jesus is seen here then as holding the spirit of each of those churches safely in his hands. This is a very reassuring picture of Jesus, but also a slightly scary picture, but one which introduces him giving the messages to the churches. The challenge for us here today in Ackworth and Badsworth is to understand what that means for us as faith communities, as churches. What does it mean for us in the world in which we live today?